So I think e5 is a really good move. And as we can see, Noctie says it is so. Knight d5, queen g4. Am I missing something? Or did I just manage to trick Noctie? Hello everyone, International Master Emil Stefanov back at it again with weekly scenario number 6 in Noctie. If you want to practice this position for yourself, make sure to follow the link in the description below. Let's get started. All right, let's try to analyze this position and figure out what's going on. So, material is balanced. We have 4 pawns on the king side versus 3 for the opponent, 2 versus 3 on the queen side. And the opponent is also trying to make a very dangerous pass pawn. Now, we could simply try to take, and the pass pawn will not be as dangerous, although the opponent might still later on create a pass pawn. In this weekly scenario, unlike other weekly scenarios so far, we're going to be testing our calculation skills. Now, of course, we see this pressure building up on the queen side with the potential pass pawn. However, we, with the white pieces, have a lot of tension on the king side, okay? So we have this beautiful knight on f5. It's putting in a lot of pressure towards the enemy's king side position. We have our queen nearby, maybe ready to support the knight. Our rook on e1, yes, it's well placed behind a pawn that we could also push if we kick out the queen on e6. And of course, we have a knight to do so. In such positions where there's play on both sides, right? Black's trying to play on the queen side, we're trying to play on the king side. It is very important that you are precise in your calculations. Now, one way to ensure that you're going to be precise in your calculations is that you start with the forcing moves, right? As beginners, we're always taught checks, captures, threats. So in a more simplified manner, that's essentially what we're trying to do here. We're trying to make forcing moves that will limit the opponent's choices. For example, a non-forcing move would be b takes c4. That's a non-forcing move because the opponent could play whatever, right? They could take the pawn, but they could play anything else. However, if we attack the queen, let's say with one of the 2 knights, preferably probably the one on f3 to d4, well, black's options are going to be limited. It's either they attack our queen, so a counterattack, or they move their queen, or they give our king a check. Any other move that they make is going to just lose their queen on the spot. So in that sense, we're limiting the opponent's options, so we're looking for forcing moves. Now, queen g3 would be another forcing move. We're basically threatening checkmate, so the opponent's options are going to be limited. I don't have to calculate every single move. I just have to calculate the moves that will be blocking me from playing checkmate. So if we were to think about all the forcing moves, well, then obviously we don't have bc4 as the forcing move, but it is a recapture. But we have knight f3 to d4, as we already mentioned, knight takes e7, knight takes g7, knight takes h6. We also have e5 and queen g3. Probably a few others that I might be missing, but for the most part, those are kind of the moves. I already hinted at knight f3 to d4, and the reason I've been hinting at it is because I don't think we're going to succeed in the checkmate attack if we start with queen g3, because there's simply knight h5 as one opportunity, attacking our queen, queen g4, and then there could be queen g6, covering the checkmate, counterattacking our queen. There might also just be simpler solutions for black available, but I think knight h5 is, if not the simplest one. So that's why I'm not leaning for queen g3. Now, e5 I would like to play, but I would like to get rid of the queen because I might have this opportunity to keep pushing the pawn and really try to utilize my rook. Another thing that I'm mentioning, that I'm foreseeing, is that after knight f3 to d4, Noctie's moves are going to be limited. It's either queen d7 or queen c8. Any sort of counterattack on our queen is not going to work in Noctie's favor. So I'm going to start with that move, knight f3 to d4. Attack the queen, and Noctie chooses queen d7. Already, if we wish to, we could take the pawn on c4. However, there might be better options. As I mentioned, we do have the ability to play e5. That will attack the knight. Knight will have to go back. we could play queen g4, but then there's rook g6, but then we have knight takes h6. So actually, because we placed our queen on g4, we have a tactic. So unless I'm missing something, I'm pretty sure the move should be e5. Knight e5 will not be a good move for Noctie, so therefore I think the move will be knight h5. Queen g4, it will be covering checkmate with the knight, but we're still threatening the queen. So I think e5 is a really good move, and as we can see, Noctie says it is so. Knight d5, queen g4. Am I missing something, or did I just manage to trick Noctie? Okay, I think I just managed to trick Noctie, right? Knight takes h6. It's a check, and the queen's uncovered, unprotected. So I'm just going to win the queen. And now I'm up an extra queen. And to put matters worse, that was a double attack. So the rest of the game will be extremely easy. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause here. Of course, I'll be able to checkmate. Even here, I continue with knight f5. And it's not looking great for Noctie. So what we're going to do, because I won another exchange and so forth, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in the starting position, and hopefully this time we'll see if Noctie plays queen d7 or queen c8. All right, as I mentioned, we're back in the starting position. Knight f3 to d4. Let's see if Noctie plays queen d7. Noctie this time chooses queen c8, which now this move would work because after pawn e5, which again I want to make that move, now there's a slight difference, and the difference being is that after knight d5, if I were to play queen g4, rook g6 will cover the checkmate and counterattack my queen, and now knight h6 is now winning the queen because it's being guarded by the rook. I also have the ability to play knight takes e7 check, and it almost looks like I'm going to win the queen, but after knight takes e7, the queen will still be guarded. The whole point there after queen g4, rook g6 is not to take with the rook, because the queen will be hanging one more time. So I'm thinking I would like to play queen g3, but again, as I mentioned, the same kind of problem exists with rook g6. So I kind of want to get rid of this knight. If I attack this knight, then let's say it's no longer covering the bishop. Essentially, I want to play queen e4 and queen g4. But that's my idea. I'm going to play queen e4. Okay, it's not the strongest move per Noctie, but it's still somewhat okay. But yeah, my idea was very simple. I wanted to attack the knight, move it out of the way, and now play queen g4, because now I'm actually threatening knight takes e7 and queen takes g7 checkmate. So now Noctie played bishop f8, which totally makes sense. Knight takes h6, there's rook h6, and of course the queen's covered by the enemy rook. But as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I was really excited to see my pawn get pushed all the way to e6. And as we can see, this is an excellent move. Essentially, I'm cutting the coordination between the black's pieces. Now, any rook captures, I have my knight takes e6 move. If the pawn had captured, I had some knight takes h6, weakening the Noctie's king very much. Noctie continues with g6. And this is where things get crazy, yeah? Okay, so let's calculate, okay? So our knight's not really being attacked because we have a pin. We could take e takes f7, which in turn forces king takes f7. But I don't see any follow-up checks. The king is very well guarded. The bishop blocks my knight. I probably have e7, now that I think about it. Bishop e7, knight e7. I'm just going to win the queen. As we already mentioned, rook e7, queen c8. So actually, what is Noctie going to do after e7? I'm attacking the bishop. I'm wanting to promote. As already mentioned, there's no gf5 because there's a pin, and queen f5, there's knight f5. So after e7, I think Noctie needs to play bishop g7. That's the only move. But then I have knight h6, which... okay, gives a check, bishop h6. I trade queens, and I could promote another queen. And after I promote another queen, rook takes e8, rook takes e8, I win an exchange. Is that endgame winning? Let me think. E7, bishop g7, knight h7, knight h6, bishop h6, queen c8, rook c8, e8 queen, rook takes, goes back, rook takes e8 check, king has to move, and I take on c4. And I think that's the main part Although there's some bishop g7 and like knight and rook are a little bit awkward. Okay, maybe we survive, but maybe we don't take bc4. Yeah, maybe we figure out a different move. Yeah, probably like rook e1. Okay. I think this is work. I think this works. Okay. Green move. After all these calculations, seeing a green move is nice. Okay, as I mentioned, bishop g7. Otherwise, we were just gonna win an extra piece. Okay, and knight h6. I think that's the move. Knight h6 check. We force bishop 8. Well, actually, we don't force bishop h6. Yeah, never mind. I really thought we were forcing a move here. Yeah, so in the previous line that I mentioned, basically Noctie, if it took bishop h6, the bishop would have not been on this diagonal. That's kind of what I was debating afterwards when I promote my queen and give a check. Noctie will be looking for that option. But after king h7, I mean, the bishop's still on this diagonal. So now, in fact, if I take rook c8 and then I promote and then I take on e8, I think Noctie takes bishop d4 and there's a double threat. Or there's an additional threat, knight e2 check, and I'm losing my rook. So it becomes very complex, unfortunately. Let's see. Queen h4, bishop h6, we just lose. I guess we just take knight f7. I'm not the biggest fan because, well, queen g4. No. Okay. Oh, I guess knight e2 at the very end of the line that I was calculating. I have rook e2. Chess is so confusing sometimes. Am I right? Okay, if I take knight f7, then I just lose due to queen g4, h4, bishop d4. So essentially, my first move is kind of forced, right? I think it's pretty much forced. And now I take on f7 because, well, I don't like promotion. Take takes, and then king h6, and then again the same problem. My knight's hanging, and there's knight e2 check after I move it. So I'm assuming I first do this because after bishop takes, promotion. Oh, I have some knight d8 tricks. Yeah. Okay. I have some knight d8 tricks. Okay. I may be able to promote to a queen. I may be able to promote to a full queen. Yeah. Okay, so rook e8 was forced. Okay. We're on the right track. Let's figure out what happened. We won 2 extra pawns, but our knight on d4 is hanging. We have a superb pawn on e7, but unfortunately we cannot promote it yet. A very logical and calm continuation will be knight g5 check, knight f3, just covered knight on the knight on d4, which might be the best thing to do. There's also moving this knight to g5, and but then our knight. Yeah, the biggest problem here is the knight on c3 is actually extremely powerful. And let's not forget there's always knight e2 check, and yeah, okay. So basically, okay, we probably need to give the checks. Or give the check, but then rook d6 attacks. Okay, but I have some counterattack knight b5. No, wait, I don't have counterattack knight b5. Oh boy, okay, this is tough. This is not easy. How do we continue here? So I can't play rook d1 because the knight's there. I can't play rook e4 because the knight's there. This knight on c3 is really putting in some work. I could give the check and go knight f3, but after rook d6, I don't exactly see how we continue. Maybe we have some knight e6, but not ideal anyhow. Anytime I move the knight back, it's just going passive. I don't like being passive. I don't like going knight c2. I could go knight c2 right now, but I don't like that. Maybe knight f3, knight e2 check, rook takes e2, bishop takes a1, and maybe we find a way to kick out the enemy rook from e8, but I don't see how that happens either. It would be really nicely to put a knight on d6, but that doesn't work. Wow, I'm a little a little stuck in this position. I have the check, but then after rook d6, I don't know how to continue. I would kind of like to keep my knight on f7 because I have the knight d6 option, but it just doesn't work. Yeah, golly, this knight on c3 is really strong. Now that there are no queens, there's no checkmate. I just need a queen on h4, and I'm so close to checkmating, but it's not there. Okay. I think I'm going to use the best function of Noctie and just go with my first instinct. Okay, it's a green move. And then figure out if I'm making a total blunder. Ooh, I have 96. That probably is better. Yeah, 96, rook e5, rook e7, knight g7. Okay. I think we survived that. Yeah, bishop f6. Finally, we take on c4. Okay. But no, rook e7. I'm getting attacked very roughly. No, but I have c5. Okay, game goes on. Okay, let me see. Okay, 96. Okay. We figured it out. Not passive, but more active. Okay. Bishop. Oh. Okay, take. Great. Okay, bc4. Okay. We're still in this. Okay. Rook e7. Logical, but I thought c5. I pushed the rook. Has to go to a6. Then I could even keep pushing. Oh, rook d6. Oh, okay. Okay, so Noctie's trying to be very tricky. Okay. So it's still all about attacking my knight, yeah? Rook a d1, I'm losing that. Knight b5, cb5, I'm losing the bishop, the rook on a1. Did I put myself in some only types of solution position? Because if I did, that's going to be really tough to come out of. It's going to be really tough. c5, rook d4, knight d4, bishop d4, c6. But I don't see how we win after king f7, c7. Just probably like bishop b6. Go get the pawn on c7 and only then take the pawn on e7. Golly, that knight is so strong. It is so hard to get something done against that knight. My alternatives are what? My alternatives is not knight b4. Knight c7 is an alternative. Force rook c7, rook e7, bishop e7, and then knight b5. And we're up an extra pawn, but I mean the opponent has an extra or two extra pawns, but the opponent has the better minor piece. But that might be it. Let me check. Okay, great move. Love to see great moves. Okay, so rook e7 was forced. I bet we take rook e7, bishop e7, and then we save the knight. Okay. Finally we did it. Do we go with this knight or with this knight? I guess we go with this knight. Okay, yeah. There's no rook c6. Okay. So knight b5. That's the only way. And unfortunately, we might be losing this pawn. Yeah. So even though we're up to extra pawns, essentially what has happened is the queens have come off the board. We've lost our pass pawn. And yes, Noctie's down 2 pawns, but Noctie's pass pawn potential is still there, especially after we lose the a2 pawn. There's also bishop c5, attacking my f2 pawn and winning that one. Noctie has the better minor piece to just name a few problems in our position. I would love to play a3 and trade, but after a3 there's b3, and it's just, oof. Life is just tough. So I think Noctie might have escaped here with a draw. Maybe we need to go back, revisit what we could have done better. The tension in this position is just way too much, and maybe we survive, maybe we make a draw. But ultimately, I don't think we win this because the 2 extra pawns don't count for anything right now. All right, as I mentioned, I think here we might even be losing. We might try to escape with a draw, but plenty of problems. Maybe here we just didn't need to let the rook go to d2. So maybe play knight f3 instead and cover the square. Although Noctie gives it a not as good of a move. Maybe it's because my knight here is actually hanging in many lines. But maybe we still do knight b5. We trade. It's still very tough, as we can see. Noctie is very close to winning. So let's go back to where we had queens on the board. I think we're going to come to this moment where I played queen e4, and if you remember, Noctie said, not the most exciting move. So here what we're going to do is we're not going to play queen e4, but we're going to play queen f3, which, okay, for some reason now it's excellent. I essentially have the same idea, but I guess what I have as an advantage as opposed to the queen e4 line are two things. First of all, I have an extra option of queen g3. Don't know if that's going to be that useful. But the second thing is I'm not getting attacked on e4. And I guess third, I might want to include the rook as well. But actually, the knight's covering that. So really, it's only two benefits, right? My queen's not being attacked, and I may have the option of queen g3. So yeah, okay. Queen g4, we already know what's going to happen. It's going to be bishop f8. So how about we trade first, put the other knight on f5, and then do the little queen g4 trick. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play knight f5. I'm going to go queen g4. Hopefully Noctie plays rook e8. It makes this very simple for us, right? Because afterwards we just win the queen. Well, the rook is attacked. Rook e6, queen g4. Actually, that's a double attack now that I'm realizing it. Yeah. Okay, Noctie plays rook d7 to try to block the diagonal. But I still have the trick, no? Queen g4. And I'm still threatening 97 check, so Noctie will probably play queen f8. Okay, but we win the pawn here. We managed to win the pawn. I think we win the pawn without playing bc4, which is very important. Because, as we saw before, once the queens come off the board, wait, did I miss something? I don't think I missed anything. I was anticipating queen f8. Oh, but then the rook's hanging because I still have knight takes h6. Yes. Oh, okay. So rook d7 then was bad move, yeah? Knight e7. Whoa. Fork the whole house. The royal fork. I mean, this is... So I have the option of taking on g6. And after f takes g6, I have e6. I also have the option of taking on c8. Don't I just win a whole rook there? Yeah, just win a whole rook, right? Because after rook g4, I have the pawn on h3 covering my queen. So now I'm up an extra rook. There we go. All right. So queen f3 instead of queen e4 definitely had some major pluses. But although Noctie's just never giving up and giving us trouble, even though we're up a whole rook. Oh my goodness. I think I'm going to be very conservative and just give up my rook for the knight, but keep my extra knight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this pawn. Okay, Noctie didn't like that. I'm not the biggest fan of that. But I'm going to take on b3. I'm going to play knight d6. It's probably not the best solution, but I basically want to play rook b1 and tell Noctie, all right, you can have my rook, but I'm going to be with an extra knight. Simplest human solution possible. We just make sure that there's no trouble, and we're going to win the pawn on b2. Our king is not getting back rank checkmated. We have an escape square. The rest of the game should be pretty simple. We just need to make M promote one of our pass pawns. Luckily, Noctie is already even giving us the ability to play e6 and just solidify that extra pawn, extra pass pawn. Rook e2, we'll defend it, and we'll put it on e7. And afterwards, we will push the c pawn. So e7 or knight d6 just promotes the e pawn. That's even easier. Yep, I think that's even easier. And then rook e7 to go back and attack the g7 pawn. No g6, and we're just gonna capture that pawn. Okay, I'm always so fearful, but this is not stalemate because there's h5. Okay. I'm going to play knight takes g7. Maybe rook g7 was better, but okay, we just play knight g7. Just go back to f5, and now the king is basically stuck on those two squares, or three squares. All I gotta do is just promote this pawn, and the rest is history. I'm just going to pre-move it, and pre-move it all the way to a rook, because why not, right? What is checkmating with a queen when you can checkmate with a rook, right? And even under promotion. Good luck in your games. You know what to do. Attack the enemy king and look for the forcing moves. Good luck.